How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here and welcome back to another video. So after a long wait, especially with all of the negative press that's been going on recently, we finally got some patch 9.1.5 official developer notes. There's a few leaks that have gone through, or small snippets from blue posts that we've seen, but now we've got a huge dump of information on exactly what we're going to be seeing in the new upcoming patch. Now this is going to hit the PTR, presumably probably actually by the time you see this video the PTR should be up and we should be able to dive in there and have a little bit of a deeper look. But let's go through this. Let's work out what we've got available to us. Blizzard have been sort of throwing candy at us recently, trying to keep us sweet and keep the player base engaged and active in some way. So hopefully there's some good changes in here that will appease everybody. So let's dive through and look at them one by one, break them down. Allied races, we're getting some new customization options for the Nightborn, the Lightforged Draenei and the Void Elves. By no surprises, it probably won't work properly on the PTR when you first do it, but it's coming. Customization options were one of the things that Blizzard stated very early on in Shadowlands that they weren't actually going to plan on doing anymore, but obviously, you know, outcry, people want it, people want to be able to customize to the same degree regardless of which faction they choose, of which race they choose. So this is cool. They've also made it a little bit easier to unlock them. The dungeon quests for unlocking both the Korthia, the Mechanomes and the Dark Iron Dwarfs no longer required. Accepting the dungeon quest, speak to the NPC again to be able to skip it. Now, of course, now we're all in Shadowlands, a lot of those dungeons were related to Battle for Azeroth, and of course, it was a little bit more difficult to get a group together to go and do them, so you can just skip them now. This is really good news. Unlocking those allied races is going to be much easier if you haven't already. Some weather effects have been added in both Stormwind and Orgrimmar. Cool, great, excellent. Let's move on to the classes then. These are going to be some of the bigger ones. All cooldowns of 2 minutes or longer are now reset at the end of a raid encounter or when starting a Mythic Plus dungeon. This was 3 minutes or longer for cooldown. You'll start to spot, I think, in these updates that there are quite a lot of changes that are indicative of our new esteemed leaders. It's obvious to see that there's quite a few of the new leadership team within Blizzard who actually play the game. There was even clips of, you know, of them saying things like this AoE cap is terrible, and they're removing stuff along those lines. So you'll see a lot of stuff that relates to the fact that the devs are actually playing the game, it feels again now, which is really good. So this used to only be a 3 minute cooldown, now it's everything that has a 2 minute or less. This is just a nice quality of life thing when you kill that boss, or worst case scenario when you wipe on that boss, having all of your cooldowns reset for next time, there's less waiting about, all good. Now this is the big one. The following area effect abilities are no longer maximum target capped and instead deal reduced damage beyond the 5 targets. Once again, if you try go testing this on the PTR, it may be a little bit broken to begin with, but there's some more detailed developers notes on this. With the launch of Shadowlands, we reduced the maximum number of targets that several abilities could hit specifically to address a few gameplay problems related to pulling large numbers of enemies in a dungeon. Players often referred to these changes as the AoE target cap. Their intention was to reduce the effectiveness of burst AoE buttons against large target counts in the ranges of 15 to 20, while also increasing their effectiveness against fewer targets, 3 to 5 enemies, communicating that strength clearly in the tooltips. The abilities that remained uncapped were generally the ones that offered low damage over a long period of time, so things like a Mage's Blizzard or a Paladin's Consecration. Along with other changes, we set to move away from pull as many enemies as possible, blow all cooldowns and delete them as the predominant strategy across various forms of content. One thing they haven't touched on here was also the lag that was generated by doing this. When the damage was hitting so many different targets and you were pulling 15 to 20 at once, and all of our gear was proc based, there was a lot of maths going on behind the scenes, and it was causing huge amounts of lag. Reducing the AoE cap was quite apparent to be a somewhat soft fix for the lag issues that we're seeing. Hopefully they've fixed it. Who knows? We'll have to see. We'll do some testing. We've received a lot of feedback about the abilities not hitting enemies in range in any way that creates a real problem for WoW combat, but it's also an issue for trivial encounters like farming legacy content. For many of the abilities that underwent the change from the uncapped to a strict target cap in 9.0, we're converting the damage to be reduced damage beyond 5 targets. This means your ability will deal full damage against 5 targets and then reduced damage to each additional target beyond 5. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out, which 5 it's going to hit like for the full strength, because of course there's often the case where you want to prioritize damage on one thing or a couple of things and then any other trash mobs that are pulled with it. We'll have to see. This means that while the overall damage done by the ability increases with the number of targets, the individual damage done to each target will decrease. The solution means the abilities and their relative classes will still have a very strong niche against packs of 4 to 6 enemies. As always, tuning will change as the result of the shift over the next few weeks. The big one for me is going to be if they can combat the lag that was caused by mass AoE pulls. Now our gear obviously now still has a lot of proc based stuff on it. The Sanctum of Domination gear, almost all of the extra abilities that come from that are somewhat proc based. You're not actively choosing to press a key on your keyboard. So hopefully they'll have fixed this lag issue and our game won't just grind to a halt when we pull a big pack of stuff, but we'll see how it plays out. Now there are obviously detailed information on exactly which spells are changing based on the different classes. I won't read through every one. If you're specifically interested in your exact class, your main character, check the link in the description below for this and have a quick look. But everybody is getting a little bit of a rejig about with their AoE stuff, which is really cool to see. Additionally, we're now getting into more spec-specific changes as well. The same for these. As much as I would love to go through every single one in this video, it will quadruple the length of this video, and I'd rather let people who are interested in just one spec specifically jump into this and have a read for themselves. Let's cover the main topics of conversation though. So let's go to the covenants. Players who reach high renown threshold will now be able to freely switch among any of the 4 covenants without cooldown or restriction. Can anybody say ripcord? They finally pulled it by the looks of things. Now what they haven't stated is what this high renown threshold will be. Probably because they've not decided, but it seems very sensible to me, and we've had the discussion on stream in the last few days, that it seems very sensible for that renown threshold to be 80. 80 is the cap for Season 2. Once you have, in theory, grinded all of the renown out within that covenant on a single character, then you should be able to switch about as much as possible. They probably want to keep you somewhat tied to your covenant until you've kind of quote-unquote completed it, and then you can move about as much as you like. This will be very good for those people that hit renown 80, they're sort of maxed out with their covenant and they just want to dive between the other covenants, maybe picking up some rewards, getting the transmog options, the pets, the mounts, all of that sort of good stuff. Both the covenant switching and the use of cosmetic rewards will also apply to alts whilst this threshold has been reached on at least one character. So you're not going to have to hit renown 80 on your alts even, as long as you do it on at least one. I'm assuming renown 80 here, by the way. That seems to be the logical thing. I don't think we'll probably get patch 9.1.5 going live much before we have the ability to get renown 80 anyway, so I would imagine that that will be the threshold in place. But once you do it on one character, all of your alts will then freely be able to switch their covenants at will, to the good news of many people. Along with that, another candy that Blizzard's thrown our way is the ability to, well, basically Conduit Energy has been removed. Conduits will be able to be freely swapped without any restrictions. Anybody that this has affected, it's a real annoyance. the rest of the player base to where it hasn't really affected them. It's neither here nor there, but it really felt like a weird system in the first place, sort of, especially if you were a class that had multiple different specs. If you're a mage, for example, you have 3 DPS specs, so it's less of a thing. But take a paladin or a druid that has very, very different specs. You could be a healer, you could be a tank, you could be DPS, swapping between, and then you would probably always be running out of conduit energy. Not to mention if you wanted to engage in more aspects of the game, such as you want to do PvP one day, you want to do some Mythic Plus, you also want to go to the raid, and you want to customize your setup or your setup for each of those different scenarios. It felt really bad that the conduit energy restriction was even there in the first place. Really good to see this gone. Completing the Shadowlands or Korthia Covenant campaign on any character allows alternative characters joining the same covenant to be able to receive the renown associated with that campaign from all catch-up sources. Now, this seems to indicate that if you take a character into the Night Fae and then you bring your alt into the Night Fae as well, that they will be able to instantly access all of the renown from the campaign. It's not too clear actually exactly what this refers to, unless I'm missing a trick here. But the next bullet point is one that might clarify. So completing the Shadowlands campaign on any character will allow alts joining that same covenant to also immediately unlock their soulbind. This feels to me very much like a campaign skip for your alts. Once you've completed the campaign on one character, it does seem to say that they're going to break it down. So if you've completed the Night Fae campaign and your alt roles Kyrian, you are still going to have to do the Kyrian campaign. Until you've done each of the 4 9.0 campaigns at least once, it does feel like that you're going to have to do them if you haven't already. But once you've done it once, if you take an alt into that same covenant again, you should be good to go. Skip the covenant, because let's be fair, the 9.0 covenant campaign was originally a really good way to gear up your characters in 9.0, but at this point, when even the gear you get by doing it is very, very quickly replaced, and in many cases, if you've been to the auction house and bought a set of 200 gear for your alt anyway, the gear you get from the 9.0 campaign is basically null and void straight away. Being able to just straight up skip what is also about 5 to 8 hours worth of actual gameplay during the campaign is a very, very welcome change, especially for those of us out there that have got lots of alts. This is going to be really, really cool. There are some new Covenant toys to discover as well. Time will tell what they are. But let's look at it from a breakdown of the Covenants themselves. So the Night Fae are going to have some new soul shapes to collect. There are some new critter shapes. Due to their tiny appearances, they are only usable in rested areas. This is interesting. You're going to be able to shrink yourself down to the size of a critter by the looks of things. Option to soul shape and critter shape into randomly collected appearances. This is cool. I'm going to be honest, with my Night Fae characters, I've barely bothered changing this ever. But I know a lot of people like to be a sort of a spectral frog or a spectral fox, whatever the case may be. The ability to have a random button is kind of cool. We have a random mount button from our selected favourites. This is also kind of quite cool. There are some additional Sanctum changes though. The adventures, for those of us that are smashing through mission tables and doing the mission tables on multiple characters. The more missions that are unlocked by reaching maximum adventure level. This is if you've completed the 20 adventure missions on the mission table. You get some new more missions that unlock. Once you have done that, they will appear more often and are gated by fewer requirements. This is kind of quite cool. These are usually the ones that are going to give you Soul Ash. They can also give you Soul Cinders. They can also give you Stygia. These missions are kind of definitely helpful on your alts for sure. The Anima Conductor, the enhancement buffs now persist past the daily reset and work as a buff within all non-instanced zones of Shadowlands. A nice little buff there for you if you're running around doing your world quests. A few changes to the Queen's Conservatory for Night Fae. All seeds now stack up to 200. I'm not aware of many people that had too much of an issue with this, as you would tend to want to be using those seeds kind of quite quickly, but having them stacked to 200 is cool. All previous locations that award uncommon quality seeds now award rare quality seeds. So I think this is a bit of a rebalance to the Queen's Conservatory. Now, I know I've not highlighted the Queen's Conservatory much on the channel, mainly because it was kind of cool in the beta, but for most people it's just too slow, and the reward that you get from it is pretty lackluster. The mission table, for example, is a far better use of your efforts and your anima, especially considering you need to unlock 5 ranks of the Queen's Conservatory to even get the biggest and best opportunity, and even then you wait 3 days for 1 bag of goodies. It's a very slow burn. It had great potential by the looks of it in the Shadowlands beta, but it didn't really come through properly. This little buff though to the seeds that you acquire, giving you rare quality seeds, will both equally increase the quality of the items that you get out of those loot bags, and even give you the opportunity to maybe use more of the time-based catalysts to get them a bit faster. Either way, good little buff there. Redeemed souls, this is going to be a good one. We know already that the anima restrictions are less restrictive nowadays. You spend a day or two in Korthia and you can be flooded in anima pretty quickly. So when it comes to upgrading your Sanctum, it's more often than not a case now that it's actually the souls that's the bottleneck for you. At the moment, you can only get 20 of them a week by running through the Maw. They're changing that, so now all players will have the ability to have the 20 redeemed souls version of the quest. You may have noticed, dependent on your your renown level on your alts, that you may only be able to gather 5, 10, 15, and eventually, when you have enough renown, the 20 redeemed souls. They're changing that. Every time you pick up the quest, regardless of your renown level, you'll be sent off into the Maw to collect 20 of them. Additionally, they're going to add a repeatable quest to go and gather 20 more. This means that if you really have grinded out your anima and have your anima ready and waiting, and you want to upgrade your Sanctum, but you're being bottlenecked by the amount of souls that you have available for the upgrade, you can just, grind out the Maw a little bit to get them. I would have preferred them to just remove this at this point. Running into the Maw and collecting souls seems very, very arbitrary. It made sense kind of in patch 9.0 and to a degree 9.1 a little bit, but we spend so little time in the original Maw zone now, it just feels like a bit of an unnecessary thing. They could have made the whole thing a bit easier by just removing the requirement, but we can't have everything. So there's some cool Covenant changes in place. Some nice quality of life things for sure. Let's move on to dungeons and raids then. Timewalking. These features are going to be available later in the PTR. They may not be there straight away, but there is going to be a new Legion Timewalking event. This is going to run for 2 weeks the first time, and it runs within the game and then will resume on a 1-week schedule for subsequent bonus events. Legion Timewalking is going to be nice to see. Having it added in, cool, great, love it. Timewalking dungeons, Blackrook Hold, Eye of Azshara, Darkheart Thicket, Vault of the Wardens, blah 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 blah. The list of the available dungeons during the Timewalking holidays has been adjusted. This is the big new one though. Time Worn Keystones, a Mythic Plus equivalent of the Timewalking event, which sounds kind of interesting. Legion was where we started to get Mythic Plus in the game, and it's only sort of makes sense that they open that up to us with the Timewalking event as well. So, how does it work then? While Legion Timewalking is active, players can speak to a dude in Oribos and acquire a Time-Worn Keystone, allowing access to a max level Mythic Plus difficulty for the 6 Legion dungeons. So it's bringing the Legion dungeons up to the same level as what we are currently in Shadowlands, which is quite cool. A Legion Mythic Plus dungeon accessed in this way will have their own set of affixes, reward loot of the same item level as the Shadowlands Mythic Plus dungeons, and it will also count towards the weekly Great Vault reward options. This is going to be quite an interesting one. This basically brings you an entire alternative set of Mythic Plus dungeons you can be running that week, and the gear and the rewards that you get from it will actually be worth your while doing. This will give a real nostalgia trip to those who are big on the Mythic Plus back in Legion, being able to go through those old dungeons again and run them, but with the current level rewards and systems all in place. This sounds pretty cool. The items acquired from the Legion Mythic Plus dungeons can be upgraded with Valor points, but will not appear in the Great Vault. So there is a slight catch to it. You can spend your Valor and upgrade them to keep them in. If you get something good from the Timewalking Mythic Plus, you'll be able to upgrade it to the same level as the rest of your gear. But the items won't appear in the Great Vault. The Great Vault will still only be pulling from the pool of current Shadowlands loot, which is kind of nice. Legacy loot rules are now in place for the Battle for Azeroth raids and dungeons. These encounters will now drop a fixed quantity of class agnostic loot regardless of your group size. This is kind of cool. We've been waiting for this a little bit. And the prompt to enter into the Timewalking campaign random dungeon queue for all expansions will now occur after 5 minutes in the queue rather than 15. I really wish they'd just give you the option to queue for all of the dungeons to begin with when you're doing Timewalking. If you happen to pick if you're leveling and you've spoke to Chromie Time and you've chosen expansion that's not, the meta, your ability to queue for dungeons is remarkably less. Warlords of Draenor tends to be the go-to expansion for many players when it comes to leveling through Chromie Time, simply because the bonus objectives, all of the missions are quite tightly packed together. It's just a speedier option. But I mean, if you are bored with leveling your alts through Warlords of Draenor and you pick another one, your dungeon queues are like 2, 3, 4, 5 times longer in some cases. This is a nice change, but instead of just reducing it down from 15 minutes to 5 minutes, Blizzard, it's Timewalking. Just give us the ability to, give it as a separate option. Queue for expansion specific dungeons, queue for all dungeons. Why you're making people wait 5 minutes first, still I'm not entirely sure. But either way, it kicks in 3 times quicker. It's a bonus. It's a Blizzard bonus. I'll call it a Blizzard bonus. Blizzard bonuses always come with a but. The but is that instead of just removing it, you still have to wait 5 minutes, but it's good all the same. Now this is an interesting one. Island expeditions and warfronts. You are now able to set sail on a normal, heroic, or a mythic island expedition alone, all with a party of up to 3 players. Speak with Captain Rezcon in Darazalor or Flynn Fairwind in Borealis to begin your solo seafaring voyage. From a goblin sort of gold making perspective, this is a big one because the transmog available through the island expeditions, some of it is actually quite valuable. There are some really cool appearances through there, and if you look on the auction house for any of the specific appearances, you'll find that for the most part, they're quite valuable. It is going to mean, from a Goblin point of view, that there'll be a greater supply of these transmog options, but it also gives you the ability to go out and farm some of them yourself. So it's cool, but of course there's the pets, there's the mounts, there's some other collectibles from island expeditions, so it will be a good way to complete your collection if you wish. I'm going to be very interested to see what the XP gains are on island expeditions. I really hope that it doesn't become the meta to level your alts through island expeditions, as that can get very grindy very quickly. And more importantly, it's kind of ripe for abuse and promoting more boosting options, but we'll see what the score is with that. It's good that we can do them solo, though. I'm happy to see them solo. There's still a couple of mounts I need, and not always do I pull on my streamer privileges to get a party together to go do some islands. It'll be nice to just, chill out one evening, run some islands solo, try and get some of those doubloons and get my last few mounts that I need. They've also lowered the amount of players required to queue for a normal Battle for Stromgarde or Battle for Darkshore Warfronts to only 5. It was 15. Has anybody done a Warfront since the end of BFA? I know I certainly haven't. To be honest, I'd thought that they were done and dusted in the past. I can't see why many people are doing them at this point. But either way, it's a nice little reduction. It's a Blizzard bonus once again. You only need 5 players now. Cool. All right. Let's move on to the items and rewards section though. Players now only need to complete the achievement Breaching the Tomb on 1 character per account to begin the Legion class mount quest on the Broken Shore. Each character must still complete their class hall campaign, complete the quests, and recruit their final Order Hall champion. This is more for those players that maybe didn't play as much in Legion, as a lot of us did. You can go back and you only need to complete this once now. It's a little bit more of an account wide thing. Again, it's good for the collectors out there for sure. Is a nice little change to see. Show off your complete transmog outfit to chat or online by easily sharing a link to it in the dressing room. Players will then be able to mouse over these items to see how they can be collected, see if they've already collected the appearance, or if it's an appearance that is accessible to the character viewing it. This is kind of cool. You put together that fancy transmog outfit, you can now link it to your friends, guildmates, heaven forbid link it in general or trade chat. You can now show off your fancy gear and maybe put on your full banana suit, who knows. This is kind of cool. This is just a nice little quality of life things for those that like to share and compare transmog appearances. A new rank of heirloom gear has been added for all heirloom gear and is now usable in Shadowlands and outside of the Threads of Fate. Oh boy, I was quite strong of the opinion that Blizzard were trying to phase out the heirlooms, but this seems to go against that. Now our heirlooms are going to gear all the way up to level 60 by the looks of things. Get ready to spend presumably a whole stack of gold on upgrading your heirlooms again. This is also going to do a few interesting things for the crafting goblins out there. There's an entire set of gear, item level 87 gear, that can be crafted that up until this point has been pretty lucrative. You could craft it doesn't cost a lot to make, usually sells for a fair amount, mainly because people ding level 50 through leveling, and their gear is way below par. You can buy an entire set of level 87 gear before you start in Shadowlands and give yourself a nice little boost for a couple of levels. If your heirlooms are keeping up with your leveling though, then that's a market that may not exist for much longer. But either way, the heirlooms being used all the way up to 60 is kind of cool. It'll be interesting to see actually just how potent the rested experience is going to be. Shadowlands leveling is already pretty quick now that we've got flying, and this could very much, if you ding 50, leave your character, get some rested experience on them, we're going to see people power leveling from 50 to 60 in literally only a couple of hours if the heirloom gear is as good as what we suspect it might be. We'll take a look at this when it lands on the PTR though. Heirloom scouting maps that instantly explore all areas and grant all viable flight paths to your alts are now available for all expansions. This used to only be for Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. These are really cool. So few people actually know that these are an actual thing. They're pretty much hidden in the game unless you've gone out of your way to go and buy them. But they were always very useful to have. I would always load one up on my alts when I make new characters. Get all of the, or not all, the majority of the major flight paths for both Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms was good. But it was really nice, especially if you're doing chromie time for your leveling, to be able to get all of the flight paths that you need for the expansion that you're leveling in. This is cool. We'll have to wait and see just how expensive they are. Knowing Blizzard, they'll probably make them pretty expensive, but it is a nice little perk to have. And of course, they're heirlooms, so you buy them once and then you're done. Korthia and the Maw, any changes here then? We can unlock access to additional fast travel options from Venari's Refuge to Peridician Hold and Desmotiran within the Maw. This is cool. We needed this. Fast travel options around the Maw is definitely a bonus, especially by the time that you're you're trying to tick off the simple stuff, right? You're trying to just get your quests done quickly. It's not really current content anymore. Some extra fast travel options, well received. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. We also, completing quests from the Archivist Rosor will provide access to an anima diverter within Korthia, where your anima can be deposited. Cool! When we're doing our dailies then over in Korthia, no longer do we need to travel all the way back to our Covenant Sanctum just to deposit our anima. We're presumably still going to need to go back to our Covenant Sanctum to do any upgrades. Of course, we still need to go there to be playing around with things like the mission table. But at least all those anima tokens that are just spamming our bags and taking up all our inventory space, we can get shot of them, we can deposit them nice and quickly. Another thing to note that is not in this, but is a feature that's already launched, some of you may have caught it, is that we can now stockpile up to 200,000 anima on a single character. It's relatively safe to say that the anima drought of early days in Shadowlands is long gone. You spend an hour or two in Korthia and you can get 3,000 or 4,000 anima pretty quickly without a huge amount of effort. It's good that we can put it to use straight away. This is another Blizzard bonus though. How about Blizzard, you just, learn from the past. We had the same thing with, what was it, Azerite power back in the day. Instead of giving a token that sits in our bags that we have to use, how about treat it like a reputation and just, put it in our currency tab automatically. But hey, maybe that will come in the future. Some PvP changes then. I'm not a big PvPer myself, but let's take a little bit of a look. The lower item level PvP gear will now scale to higher item level PvP gear, to higher item level in PvP situations than before. Okay, so this is closing the difference between the good gear and the bad gear. Okay, sure. This should reduce the power level gap so that new characters can feel that they're able to compete in battlegrounds and arenas more readily. This change will not affect the high item level PvP gear. Additional PvP titles and item level ranks have been added to provide a more granular upgrade path for those players climbing up the ranks. Okay, this is cool. This just gives those those brand new characters, those alts that you're trying to run and gear up through PvP, a bit more of a fighting chance, as I would imagine if you're completely fresh going up against somebody that's fully geared, there's the probability that you get absolutely dumpstered on right now. Smoothing this out a little bit, cool, that's nice. I'm sure it'll be of great benefit to those that want to play a variety of different classes in PvP. Good change. Questing. Alternate characters on an account can now choose to skip the intro Shadowlands quest. Did you see the instant smile that hit my face then? The Maw intro quests. Once you've done it, you can skip it. Hallelujah. Praise RN Jesus. Being able to skip this is fantastic. I cannot begin to say just how many times I've done this intro quest now. You'll want to make sure that you've logged on to a character that is level 60 who has completed the Maw intro quest first to earn the new achievement, stand as 1. Cool. Get an achievement, never have to do the Maw intro quest again. Now, the Maw intro quest is good for some stuff, right? It's relatively quick. Its XP per hour is actually pretty good, and by the time you fall out the other end of the Maw intro quest, you're probably, or should at least be, level 51. So it wasn't totally useless. The big problem with the Maw intro quest though is that we've all done it 500 times. It feels very railroad. There's lots of downtime while you're waiting for Jaina to run her mouth. It's good that we can finally skip this. I certainly will be skipping this, probably never doing it again. I've done it way too many times to even think at this point. I'm glad to see a skip finally coming in. Thank you, Blizzard. This is a big one. Rune carving, legendaries. Let's talk about this then. The rune carver is now going to offer us the ability to destroy an existing legendary item and return all of the soul ash and soul cinders that were spent creating them. This is good. This is good for those classes that want to try out different legendaries, or you're put in a position through a change in the game where you have to re-roll your legendary, whether you want to change it from your legs to your shoulders or whatever the situation may be. The soul ash and the soul cinders have not gone to waste. This is going to do one of two things. This is going to incentivize people to get their higher level legendaries sooner. It's also going to mean that more base items will probably be sold. Obviously, I focus pretty heavily on the gold making, the economy side of things on this channel. And one of the biggest markets for goblins out there and gold makers alike is the base legendary items. This is going to probably slightly increase the demand for these base legendary items across the board. This is going to be for all ranks, which is only good for the goblins out there, right? Getting your soul ash and the soul cinders, that's pretty much the bottleneck when it comes to the legendaries at this point, and it's nice that you get them back. I tend not to grind Torgast all that much on many of my characters. I might get enough soul cinders to create one legendary, but going too much further out of my way to craft a second, third or fourth is not something that's really attractive to me, especially on my alts. It would be I would rather spend a bit of gold buying another base item to re-roll my legendary if I want to change it than I would have to spend 4 additional weeks running Torgast. So this is kind of quite cool. We'll see how this works out. It'd be nice to see if it gives you a few more. I mean, I suppose there's only the base item and the missives. There's not a huge amount it can give you back. Either way, good to know. We were speculating that this might allow you to destroy the base legendary items in the first place, as if you look on your auction house you may find an absolute flood of ranks 1s, 2s and 3s, but it does appear to be that, you know, it's the end result legendary that you're going to be destroying, recycling, whatever you want to call it, and you'll get your soul ash and soul cinders back. Nice to see. Thank you, Blizzard. It should have been in the game a long time ago, but thank you, Blizzard, all the same. Drop rates for rune carving recipes have increased to 100% drop rate on any difficulty. This is good, especially for the alts out there, going back and running the dungeons to try and get that one specific rune carving recipe. Just when RNGesus doesn't bless you and you have to run that dungeon 20 times to get the legendary recipe that you need is a bit frustrating. Now they drop 100% of the time if you have access to them, which is good. Additionally, it should be noted, the archivists in Korthia, I think, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it's 2,000 catalogued research. You can just buy a random legendary power that you're missing. So the sensible thing to do on your alts now is probably run any of the dungeons or the 100% drop rate easy to acquire stuff, and then spend some catalogued research points to fill out the ones that you just can't be bothered to go and get. This is good though, definitely good. Let's take a look at Threads of Fate then next. Now offers a Torgast Tower of the Damned daily quest for both experience and soul ash. This is kind of cool. This means that we can actually do some Torgast whilst leveling. This is the thing. Torgast up until this point has literally been a level 60 system. But it is daily, so it's not going to be repeatedly grindable. You can't power level solo through Torgast. You can, you know, jump on that alt day by day and maybe get a small amount of experience, but it's good that you can work towards that soul ash requirement, hopefully meaning that, you know, by the time you ding level 60, you should be in a good position to maybe start making your first legendary for that character as well. It's a nice little, I always thought that Torgast should be a system that can be utilized through leveling. It's nice to see that they've added it into the game. There's also going to be a PvP Battleground daily quest for the same experience and gear. The bonus objectives through Threads of Fate are going to be significantly shorter, and they're going to reward renown. This is kind of quite cool. The bonus objectives did feel outrageously long to complete. And getting renown, getting that catch-up renown, because as we know, any renown level prior to about 40, your goal is pretty much to get to sort of 40 as fast as possible, simply so that you can do the current 9.1 content. Getting renown 40, being able to chip away at that renown whilst leveling your characters is also another bonus. This is probably going to push Threads of Fate to be the optimal way of leveling your characters from 50 to 60. In a weird way, just repeating the campaign was actually the quicker way to do it for most people. But now with the bonus objectives, being able to smash through a quick Torgast run, maybe even do a battleground, you should be able to not only get from 50 to 60 nice and quick now, you should get some gear out of it, you should get some soul ash so that you're ready when you hit level 60 for your legendary, and that renown to get you up and running as well. All good. I like these. These are some positive changes. Next and finally, we have some user interface and accessibility changes. Updated the requirements to participate in the newcomer guide system. Players can now opt into it after completing 3,000 quests and reaching max level. This is all based around Excel's Reach, the new 1 to 10 leveling zone for new players. If you want to become a new player guide, there are some somewhat strict requirements. Blizzard want to make sure that you have at least a reasonable amount of experience in the game before trying to help the new players out. But it's cool to see that they've updated the requirements for this. They've improved gamepad compatibility, including support for touchpad and gyro. This is ironic, really, because people were getting bans not so long ago for using gamepads. It's good to see that they've actually, fixed that and are giving people support to play on a gamepad if they wish. I would imagine it feels pretty clunky to play on a gamepad, but there's an accessibility issue with allowing people to do it, so it's good to see that they're supporting it. Mythic Plus and PvP ratings can now be shared through chat links with a shift click. Oh good god, I cannot wait to see the spam in general chat with these, but cool all the same. The upgrade UI has been reworked. Item upgrade UI. I'm guessing item upgrade UI. Okay, sure, cool. We'll have to see how that actually. There's no details there at all. We'll have to see how that works on the PTR. Group Finder improvements. Search now allows for numerical ranges, i.e. search 5 to 9 finds Mythic Plus keys levels 5 to 9. This is handy. Having to scroll through an entire list and cherry picking out the ones that the ones that are relevant, and more importantly, getting rid of all of those, the boost sellers. This could be quite handy. Nice to see. Autofill group finder information based on the creator's keystone. The information can also be entered manually. Just a nice little quality of life thing there. Group creators can now set a minimum Mythic Plus or PvP rating requirement for applicants. This kind of makes sense though. This kind of makes sense now that they've implemented the rating systems. There seems to be no reason why you couldn't ask for a minimum rating. I hope it goes by the same theory of that you can't ask for a rating higher than what you already have, but we'll have to see. Group creators can now select playstyle to set expectations for their group. Select a playstyle? Okay, we'll have to see how that works out. I'm not quite sure I totally understand that. Select a playstyle to set expectations for their group. Alright, maybe the playstyle would be, maybe if you're trying to put a group together for questing or for dungeons or something. Seems an odd one, but sure. Reporters will receive a message when their report results in action being taken. Offenders will receive a message when any current or future penalties of their behaviour is not corrected. Oh, they're changing the reporting system. This is interesting. This is going to give people who report those report bots, or should I say suspected bots, or people just using foul language or whatever the case may be. players are going to get some actual in-game feedback. Some of you may have noticed, if you've ever reported a player in-game, if action is taken, sometimes you actually get sent an email saying that, you know, we took action, thanks for your feedback and that sort of stuff. But it looks like they're implementing something in-game as well. Positive feedback that, you know, your actions have been heard is definitely a bonus. The offenders will receive a message of any current or future penalties of their behavior if their behavior is not corrected. This might be an indication that if you get, I don't know, from a goblin perspective, let's say you're sat at the auction house for a few hours doing some auction house PvP, and you get reported for being a bot, incorrectly may I add, that maybe you'll get an indication that it's happened. We'll have to see how that plans out, but it's good to see that they are giving the players, the general player base, more control and more feedback over the reporting system, which is nice. Text-to-speech settings are saved on the server and add an option to also save the settings account-wide. Just a nice little accessibility change there for those that use the text-to-speech. And the option to add voice transcription output to any chat frame and change the font color. Cool. These are just nice little bonuses for those that need them. Good to see. Well, there we go then. That was a significantly longer video than I usually put out on the channel, but it's good to finally see some big development changes to the game. Lots of quality of life stuff there. Lots of little UI changes, nice little things to have. 9.1.5, to summarize then, is not a content patch. It is a tuning patch. These mid-tier patches that Blizzard put out are usually where they do these little things to make our gameplay a little bit more, you know, a little bit more manageable, a little bit less grindy. It's good to see. We're not going to be getting new dungeons, we're not getting new raids, we're not getting anything like that this patch. That'll all come in patch 9.2. But by the time you see this video, the PTR should probably be up and running. My recommendation to most is at least spend an hour or two on the PTR. Take a little bit of a look into these changes for yourself. As it's good to keep your eyes on what's changing in the future. But then, boys and girls, I'll leave it there for this video. If you enjoy this kind of video, please give the video a like. It really does help my channel grow. Consider hitting that sub button if you enjoy the content. And if you're a regular over here and you enjoy what we do, you could even consider jumping on board with the Patreon for the channel. This means that I can do more sort of focused content. I don't have to focus on clickbait. I don't have to focus on just trying to grind out views. I can focus on giving you guys just the best information that I possibly can, primarily around goal making and the economy in World of Warcraft. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.